Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
And Jeanette's joining us too, right?
I hope so, because I'm hoping that Jeanette is actually leading this. I don't know who's actually leading it, if it's not Jeanette.
I don't think that's for you all to maybe hash out in this.
Is that
meeting,
right?
'cause I don't know
Okay.
Usually that's what happens. Like the first ad hoc committee meeting, somebody steps up as chair. So
Okay, good. I wasn't sure who or what was doing that. I'm going to be
Yeah,
back in just a
yeah,
second. I have to take a bio break. I'm coming from another Zoom meeting.
totally. Were you all able to access those agendas on Box that I sent out? Nothing to them.
I
We haven't
appreciate
really
you.
established agenda items, but it's the same thing. Just got to do it, just so that the public has some sense of that we're meeting and basically the format of what we're going to do. So
Yeah, I always appreciate you coming from Box. It makes it easier to find things.
great. Thank you for teaching me about Box.
You're welcome. Hey, Jeanette. Audio starting.
Hey, Jeanette.
Hey everyone.
Hi, Jeanette.
Hey.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm just not feeling too great right now. Does it show?
Yeah, no, you just looked a little stressed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you all just coming off a meeting?
I am.
Yeah. And was there another Human Rights Commission one or after this? Yeah.
This is the first one, right? And then
Okay.
the second half is the other meeting.
Great. Want to say hi?
That's correct. Yeah. So we just started.
We're waiting for you, Jeanette.
Oh, okay. I'm not leading though. I was just coordinating the timing.
Well, should we just call it to order at 1:02? I mean, just in general.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
And you all, if somebody wants to step up and be chair, you totally can do that. The ad hoc committees are a little bit more flexible with that, but however you want to do it.
Yes. And were you going to say that you were going to do this?
Yes.
Okay, then I will not say anything. I was just going to make a suggestion that we review what it is we're doing.
Yes.
I was thinking the same thing. Focus on our objectives at first. Thanks, Jessica, for taking.
Thank you,
the lead.
Jessica.
Do you want me to take notes, or Todd, are you required to participate?
I'll do minutes because it's a publicly noticed meeting, so I have to type the minutes and post them publicly afterward. And as well, you all have, you can do the usual thing if you want to recite the mission. You can also just say your names in order too as a roll call. It's pretty small group, so it's easy to do that. And then we do have two public comment things. So, and looks like we have Molly's with us in the audience as well. So.
I guess, Todd, I'm just so used to you doing roll call. So, I mean, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'm pretty good at that. I'm just going to go in order that you appear on my screen. But Jessica, since you spoke first, Jessica. And Andy.
Here.
Jeanette.
Here.
Lindell.
Here.
Thanks. Do you want to read the mission?
Yes.
I don't have it up. Give me a second to bring it up.
Yeah.
I haven't memorized it. Okay, I'm ready. Do you want me to share it or does everybody have it?
Got it up.
Okay.
Here we go. Act as a
Act as a strong advocate to justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights.
Human rights. Act as, okay. Excellent.
And Jessica, we have one member of the public, and Molly is probably very familiar with how to raise her hand if she wants to speak. And she has raised her hand, so I'm going to give Molly the floor. Molly should be on.
Great. I just wanted to say I've never noticed before on Zoom the live transcript option at the bottom, and I have it turned on, and it actually works pretty well. I mean, if that feature has always been there and the city has just chosen not to make it available, that's kind of a bummer. And I hope that you can maybe talk to the communications office and get them to activate that for every meeting, because it's pretty functional.
Mhm.
So thanks, guys.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you, Molly.
And I can chime in on that. I noticed that too, which I was pretty excited to see because we've been asking about that for a bit. And sounds like I talked to Brian a little bit before this, and it's a new service that Zoom is providing. So they're giving it to the city at the moment, apparently. Maybe if Brian had more to say, he could chime in, but we're glad to have it for sure. And because it was previously available only on the Facebook Live rebroadcasts or live broadcasts. So now we have it here, which is wonderful.
Yeah, Zoom's calling this a live transcript, which is just automated captioning. So it's system generated, and we're apparently in the early access of the customers who have access to it. So we've turned it on, and we tested it with the Tree Commission earlier this week, and now we're testing it with you. But I do expect we'll have it on for every meeting, and then we'll see if they charge for it down the road. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Thanks, Brian.
So keep the feedback coming, though.
Is that the last of our public comment?
Molly was the only attendee, unless she has anything else. I think we're ready to move into the work session.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we should all orientate ourselves of kind of what our mission, like what we're being tasked to do. I know several things came up from our last Human Rights Commission meeting. Todd, do you mind recapping us?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the, let me pull up the minutes from the last meeting, because much has happened since the last meeting, and I don't remember either without thinking about it. I do know that, you know, this engagement committee started to think more broadly about, you know, not just doing things around the, for example, the disability PSA that they've been talking about before, which is sort of shifted to the accessibility committee, but also around action around police violence and things like that. So I believe that was sort of what inspired you all to want to talk more. And that was before the commission had issued the public statement. And so maybe this is a bit of a continuation on that topic. And I'll open the minutes. I won't talk much more than that, so you guys can fill in. But if I read some more things, I'll let you know.
Okay. And Jeanette, do you mind, because I know you were part of this committee before, do you mind giving us a little breakdown of kind of what was happening? And then I guess we can spend the rest of the meeting just deciding what we want to do next. But yeah, I do remember those points, Todd. But Jeanette, can you give us a little of the back history?
Sure. When I started on the commission in spring of 2019, in the very early time, and Andy and Lindell, I think you both were on at the same time, right?
Yep.
We formed a community engagement committee to support Charlene with events, was the initial vision of coming together to help get the word out to the community about what the Human Rights Commission does, about resources that we have to offer, so that it would be just very familiar to community members, where they would be able to easily think of a place to go if they had a complaint or a need. So that was one of the main goals. And then out of that, we had a speaker come to one of our meetings to share concerns about disability access. And so Phoebe and who, do you all know who else was? I wasn't on the group that focused specifically on that.
Melvin was.
Phoebe and Melvin focused on creating a script for a disability video that would show various community members, like real life community members, talking about accessibility in the city and like personalizing the issue, just to show real stories, real people stories. And we had talked about other outreach potential, like signs or bus notices or other ways that we could communicate the purpose and intent of the Human Rights Commission. Charlene ended up being very independent with the events and didn't lean on us or need us because that was just something that she really did. So that part ended up not taking off. And then she left, and so we didn't really revisit that. Did I summarize that right? I mean, do y'all have anything else to add?
I think one of the other things that, I don't know if it, I don't remember if it was talked at the last meeting, but we were also discussing the online presence of the Human Rights Commission. So I think this is part of that committee work as well. And I'm just curious if either Todd or Brian, you have any updates about sort of policy or guidelines around online presence, you know, who can, if there's people who can manage it, you know, what our roles are here.
Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, and Brian, feel free to jump in if I'm misspeaking in any way. But so I did some research on that and some asking. First of all, social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter and all the other ones that I'm not that familiar with. None of the boards and commissions have independent social media accounts. Now, that said, there is a sort of a legacy, I guess you could call it, Facebook page for the Human Rights Commission. And Charlene opened that, and she is, unfortunately, I think she's the only one who can access it. And I've reached out to her about it. We've talked about seeing if she can transfer ownership or close it down. There's some things on there that she would like to save. So in my last few attempts to reach out to her about it, we haven't connected yet. So that's still ongoing. So it's very outdated, obviously. And she really only used that to post notices of events, never really issuing any statements of position or anything like that. So it was strictly for announcing events, which, you know, she did a lot of. With regard to, we also have the Human Rights Commission has a web page, which is administered by the clerk's office. It doesn't have much other than a listing of your names and a brief mention of the mission, as well as how to apply, I believe. The Office of Human Rights has a page on the city's website, which I update and can access. And so I've, you know, there's a discussion about whether or not we could post information or statements and things like that from the commission on that webpage. And I don't have the authority to make the call. I've asked about that. And I think it's still pending as to what I'm allowed to do. Anything I post on the website, it goes in a draft form, goes to IT, they review it. If something looks, you know, wrong or fishy or whatever, they can nix it. So so my power there is somewhat limited, but that's sort of the media presence that we have. And and I see Linda's hand. The last thing I'm going to say too is that as far as the city making statements on behalf of a single board or commission, it gets tricky in terms of like a press release or a public announcement, unless it's a neutral thing like an event. So if it's a statement that may conflict with another department in the city, that's problematic for obvious reasons. And so we're venturing into territory that is challenging, which is important. That's exactly what a commission like this does. But that's kind of where we're at. So I'll be quiet so that Lindell and whomever else can speak.
Thanks very much, Todd, for that update. So, I'd just like to express my feelings about this. I understand that the city's webpage, that the city may not want to make an announcement about something that the HRC has said, right? They may not want to put out a press release that saying the Human Rights Commission has issued a statement, right? I get that. That's up to the city. I do think, however, that as a commission, we ought to be able to make statements, which we did, right? We just simply made a statement, right? Since we've done that, I think that our page, the page that you manage, for example, Todd, it seems appropriate to put on that page, we have made a statement, here's a link to it in the Dropbox, right? That seemed like a no-brainer to me. We've already done it, right? and it would kind of make sense for us to put that on our page. It's a public document, right, at this point. So my suggestion, and the same thing for Facebook, right? If we have a Facebook page, I say, let's do it and let somebody tell us we can't, right? So for example, if you have to put something on the web page and it in draft form and it goes to IT, I suggest that you just go ahead and do it and run it through the system and have somebody tell us no, right? Because there's no kind of, in my opinion, there's no harm in that unless you think there is. Like if there's some harm to you, potentially that's, I don't want to do that, right? But it seems to me that if you just kind of go, well, here's what the commission asked me to do. I'm going to run it through the system and then let the system tell us no. I'm really not keen on anticipating those, you know, making, you know, kind of telling ourselves no, right? I would rather.
Yep. No, I totally appreciate that. Because this has been public and we've talked about it publicly, and I have asked for permission and haven't gotten it. It is somewhat problematic if I just go ahead and jump in and do it. You know, if I were my supervisor, I probably wouldn't be happy with me doing something like that. That said, and I made this clear in my request when I was talking about it, is that box.com, where I've been storing all of our documents, all the things that we've created and things that are in draft in a fairly easy to access manner. The link to that main folder, which has the statement both in the original form and in an ADA accessible form that I created after the fact, that's all publicly accessible on all of our agendas. There's a link, right? And all of our agendas are publicly accessible and posted on the city website. So anybody can go there and find any of our documents. So that statement's there. The difference is, it's buried under some layers, right? It's not an explicit, like, here's the statement. It will be, obviously the statement's going to be included probably in the next agenda packet or minutes packet, probably with the commission for the next regular meeting. But so there's another way it'll probably be released publicly. I have to think about how to do that, but it has to be, yeah, somehow included in our record of our actions. So I don't know. There's my response to that.
So my suggestion with the social media, because it sounds like Charlene's the keeper of the current one, which has a decent following, actually. 500 people are currently following that account. It is always a pain to start something new, but I just don't want us to get hung up. Like, I think the thing about the social media, the community engagement that I want us to talk about, I think there's the in-person, there's some just that are not on social media, but there's a good presence of people that are on social media. And I feel like we miss out because we're not posting things. And so in that case, Todd, like, it is underneath layers, but even when I was sending the letter out, like, I was initially having issues with the box. Like, I know, like, the box, the actual document, others were having it. And so, like, it'd be nice to have, like, this is our statement, it's on our Facebook account because it's already public. I don't see it being an issue. So my one recommendation, I want to hear what everyone thinks now. Like, I think we just archive, like, if she's able to archive this account, we can just create our own account now and then link to Charlene's old website. But I feel like we're just kind of sitting on this, and I think it's time to move forward. And it's a way not only to post statements, but to post events. There's a lot of information that we have going out, and that's something I hope for us to talk about today is, like, how do we reach people? What's the information? There's a lot of information that we talk about in our meetings, and it'd be nice to, like, hey, today in the Human Rights Commission, we were talking about X, Y, and Z. Here's the link to that website. Is that least offensive, Todd, that we can do something like that? Like a resource, like events, but resources.
Yep. No, I understand. So we do also have, we all, you know, to speak to what you're talking about and how we reach people, we do have a MailChimp account that has a pretty good email list on it. So that's another way. And for a while there, when Charlene was still here, I would write newsletters on that. And I'll be honest, it's just workload. I had to drop it when Charlene left, and actually before she left, because there's too many other things that are much more sort of pressing to take care of on a daily basis than writing a newsletter. I wish I could, because it was a great way to do some outreach. It got contacts for volunteer things as a result of that, and people were aware of what we were doing. But I agree that there are ways that we could share the information. With regard to starting a new social media account, you know, I have to defer to the people who are telling me I can't do it. And so I don't know how to answer that, because I don't have explicit permission to do it myself as a staff person. So I'm not sure what to say otherwise.
So what can we do to talk? I mean, it seems to me that we, either as the subcommittee or, you know, the ad hoc committee, or as the commission, that we can just simply write a letter to whoever it is who has this power and just say, we want this. Can you please give Todd access, right? Or whatever it is, right? I mean, I think I don't want to put you in this position of having to push for this when it's us that's wanting it, right? And so I'm perfectly happy for us to go to whomever we need to and say, we think this is important. We want a Facebook page. And I think using that MailChimp, why don't we send out something to everybody on that MailChimp and say, we made this statement, here's the link, right? So those are the kinds of things that we just make a list of what we want to do. We go to whoever this person is who has this magical power and say, do it, make it so. And then again, make them tell us no, if that's what they want to do. So if you tell us who that is, then that would be my proposal.
So that would be the city manager, because that's my direct supervisor, at least until Friday, and then on Monday, I guess it will be Ashley Reynolds Marshall. So yeah, so that's who the decision ultimately lies with. So
I do wonder about having it be the HRC chair, you know, having an account sort of like, and it could just be a revolving thing that whoever's chair has access to that account. Then that way it sidesteps the whole city employee issue. And since we're already having the chair be the person who issues statements on behalf of the HRC, maybe that's a direction to go in.
Agreed. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. And I was wondering the same question you asked, Lindell, to Todd about how much of this can we take on? Like if it's MailChimp, if we just need to draft it, because it sounds like I work in MailChimp now in my day job. So it's like a matter of drafting it and putting it together. And so is that something that we could take on for you? That's why I don't know how much we can do and how much it's easier if we draft something and then send it to you and all you're doing is posting.
yeah, I mean, I created a template, a newsletter template a while ago. Had some specific fields where I'd get updates if I could from Charlene about events that she was doing, and if she was doing anything with Dialogue on Race, and then I would put updates, regarding the work we were doing in the office. But yeah, that's kind of the system. If you had a specific thing that you wanted me to put out via the MailChimp list, it wouldn't take that long to do it. Again, it's been one of those things where I haven't made it a priority just because we have so many other things that we have to try to keep up with right now. So, but yeah, if you want me to send something out using that list, I can do that.
Todd, is the MailChimp list using your city email? It's based on a government MailChimp account.
It is now. It was previously, how was it? I have to look at it again because it's been a while, but yes, I believe I have control over it now. I think it was something that Charlene had started, and then I took it over. I have to look at it. Yeah, it's actually the user is our general human rights at charlottesville.gov email address. So, and she had originally created it as a communication tool for the dialogue on race, and then
Yeah.
she had me expand it for other things. So
Well, I'd like to suggest that the commission, and maybe y'all have said this before, but that we have like separate communication tools so that they don't have to go through the office and they're not like an official government office, but that if we were to set up a generic Gmail, because I think in order to have Facebook, you have to have a Gmail account that's, Human Rights Commission, CVille or whatever, at Gmail. And then that way it could be part of what the commission does independent of the office. And then we could do the same with the MailChimp and stuff so that we're not dependent on you, Todd, and leaning into you to do that communication, but that we can be independent around that. Does anyone see any obstacle to that?
I am fine with that. I actually think that's a great idea. I mean, I anticipate that the city might still come back and say, wow, we really don't want you to do that, but I am totally fine with that possibility. I think we should just go ahead and do it. That's my feeling, right? And
Brian has something to say.
I'm thinking hard about what you guys are wrestling with, and there's some legal issues we got to keep in mind. It's sort of like if, let's say, we assigned each of you a city email address. We did that with the Police Civilian Review Board, and as we create new boards moving forward, we're doing that so that we can ensure FOIA is easy to take care of. So if there's a Freedom of Information Act request, then all the email is already at the city, right? So it's easy to harvest the records we need without having to ask a big board to go through their personal email accounts. So then what you're sort of suggesting is, well, even though the city has this tool, Microsoft Outlook, we want to use our own tool to sort of bypass the city's restrictions. And you can't really do that as a public body. So if you're communicating, I think if you're communicating on behalf of the public body, then those are public communications. And the city's posture has been, those are best done in a centralized way so that we can avoid the problems you're running into right now. We discourage people from spinning up a Facebook page on their own, because if we don't have administrative rights to it, we may lose access. If we don't have rights to it, we can't archive it for FOIA purposes. We can't necessarily teach everyone who uses it that they can't delete anything. So, if you spun up your own Facebook page and there were offensive comments that you didn't like and you deleted them, that's a potential legal issue for us. So it's not as simple as saying these things are easy to create, let's just create one on our own and start communicating. So Todd is in a tough position right now because he doesn't have a boss. He doesn't have his boss's boss. And he's got to follow communications policies, personnel policies, and you, I think, are appropriately challenging him, to engage people. And so I understand that. And I think this will be a great conversation to have with the new deputy city manager and get her thoughts about this. And then we can advise Chip on, some other practices. And I am interested in other online engagement tools that we might be able to use for commissions like yours and like the Civilian Review Board, which also has a big, goal of community engagement. So I don't want you to get the impression we're just saying, no. We're saying we have to be thoughtful. We have to take care of FOIA. We have to take care of legal issues, and we have to make sure these tools are used appropriately. As far as the Human Rights Commission's recent statement, the city manager did weigh in on that with Todd and told him that it wasn't something he felt was appropriate to be on the city's website. So that would apply then to, in my opinion, all of our communications channels. It doesn't mean it can't be in the minutes or in an agenda packet, the way Todd was referring to, because clearly the commission approved it as a business item. And so the record exists. You should, share it in that fashion as a record. But drawing attention to it in city social media or on the city website is sort of a different animal. So I hope that background's
Yeah.
helpful. I don't want to take up your meeting time because I know it's precious, but if I can answer any questions while I'm here, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate everything you said. I understand the challenges with keeping track of information and the obligations that we have as commissioners to keep track of information. I think the somewhat frustrating thing is that it does feel as though this decision about whether it was appropriate or not is really based upon the fact that we're challenging certain aspects of the way the city operates. And so I guess that's my struggle, right? I'm feeling like we've made the statement is available, right? I mean, there are ways for it to be available. But the city, or at least in terms of the city manager who has made a decision, has said, yeah, we don't want this really being public or shared broadly because, it's uncomfortable, maybe, or for whatever reason, right? And that makes me uncomfortable. I feel as though strongly, and maybe we should take this up with the city manager if we all feel this way. I don't want to speak for everyone, but if we do have a web page, if the HRC has a web page in which we keep documents and we share things, that we should be able to do that on that page, to say, here's a statement we've made and here's the link to it, especially if it's already public in other ways. The only difference is that we're making it more accessible. That's all. I mean, that's just my feeling on it.
If I can help, maybe I'll just make one more statement there. One of the things that is still pending, a response is whether or not I can, I could post links to different folders where minutes or statements or letters or, specific types of documents and materials created by the HRC. I could create links to the Box account where they're stored. I think the document center on the website would also allow me to store things there. The resolutions, like we need to have those in a more readily accessible place, I think, that's easy to scroll through and index. So in some ways, yeah, all these things are, yeah, they're documented. It's documented work that you've done publicly. And so how we archive it and where we store it. And then, yeah, if that's, right now it's in the Box folder, which is accessible, but it's not advertised, right? I think a lot of people may have shared, and I'm not on social media, so I don't know, the statement via their personal social media account, which you probably have a broader reach, to be honest, than we would have if we created a new page. It would take a while to probably gain that following. So I'm just thinking about like where things are stored and what is the best storage spot. If it's already publicly accessible and I just post links on the city website, is that crossing the line into also sort of advertising or promoting on the city's behalf? I'm not sure. I don't know that I have clarity on that yet.
In general, I think I would document your request or recommendations, what tools you think would be helpful. And once we have a director for the Human Rights Office, once Ashley Marshall has gotten oriented to the city, I think those 3 staff members really need to have a powwow about this. And if they come to the city manager with a set of recommendations, city manager says that sounds good, if you guys support this, then let's get communications to support that. Then we'll respond accordingly. But I think it's asking a lot of Todd right now to try to navigate all that. And if you can hold on a month or 2, I think we'll be better prepared to come back to you with answers and solutions.
Thanks, Brian.
Jessica, I know you had your hand up before me. Would you want to go and then I'll jump after you?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to keep hammering it's clear now to me. I worry about access, not like ADA, but like access to this information like based on our mission, like it just seems not right that we can't get this out on appropriate channels. And so I understand there's a lot of ask on you, and it sounds like from what Brian said today, like if we do have an account, it'd have to come through like Todd's potential email address, and that's monitoring. I guess the question that I had is, if that's the case, like what parts can we do for you, Todd? I know we're still waiting, like we don't know what that will look like in the end, but what is it that we can do in our ad hoc committee to make that load lighter? Because I don't want it to be like we're wanting to do all these social media engagements, and like you said, you're maybe not as familiar with those things. Like I'm very savvy on social media, like on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So like I know how to navigate those. And so I want to know, like, if that's possible moving forward, how much of the load can we take off of you? Or is this an added like part of your job description, which I don't want that to happen. This is what I'm ultimately saying. So I just want clarity on that too, as we're moving forward for permissions. Like, what is it that we can do, because we're pushing this, and I think we need to be accessible to our public in person and on social media. Like I said, a lot of, especially my generation, is on social media, and I want to hear their voices. And so, yeah, that's all I want to say.
One thing I would recommend, I have just a quick question, Brian, and then I have some recommendations. Will the Human Rights Commission be getting city emails?
You certainly could if you wanted to.
Okay.
Again, I think we've only done that with one board, the
Uh-huh.
Police Civilian Review Board. And what we're saying is we think that's a best practice moving forward.
Yeah. So I would say, like, I didn't realize that the city manager had explicitly said no to posting it. Maybe you said that, Todd, but I missed that. So that's an interesting perspective. But I would suggest that we work as a commission to pull together a plan so that when the leadership is in place, we have it to present to them. And I think included in that, we would ask for city emails. We would ask for a Facebook page and a Twitter page. We also, like, my understanding is that we are a public body, as Brian said, but we don't report to the Human Rights Program Director, right? We're not employees of them, we're advisors to them. So in that sense, I do think we should have some independence. I mean, I don't understand, I'll want to go back and read our charter and everything and make sure that, but I think that we can have an independent voice from the Office of Human Rights. And I would love to find out if that's true or not, because we are not the office. We are an independent public body that can give voice to things separate from the office. And so I can do some follow-up research on that. But I think if we start by like the community, like identifying what are the goals of the Community Engagement Committee, you know, that we want to reach out to people, that we want to get this message out, and these are the things we want. And then we present like a really concise plan to the leadership when they're in place that has those outlines there, we'll have a really good case, a much better case. And Brian or Todd, do either of you know about that question about like how much of an independent body we are?
Well, yeah, you sure. I mean, you voted on a statement and that was your voice, right?
Okay.
So clearly the commission can do things like that. And individually, you all have your own voices and First Amendment rights and can share it in your networks the way you did.
But it sounded like you were saying that there was something specific about what you said, like that we were trying to circumvent the process, which wasn't what I was thinking we were doing. I was thinking we had an independent voice. So I'm wondering if you could clarify.
No, I heard a couple of you say sort of bypassing city systems and restrictions. A couple of people referred to that.
I know I meant that from like from Todd's perspective. Like it seems like everything is held up through Todd at the moment. And so I was meaning that, like, how do we gain access in that way? But not to circumvent like breaking rules, but how do we make it so the load is not, for me, the load is not on Todd and Andy and Jeanette. Was it?
I think there was maybe, Jessica, were you talking about how to set up a page to begin with? Because you were saying you need to have an email to be able to set up an account. I think you were talking about more just account setup, not communication necessarily, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think we were talking about having separate emails set up for communication. It was more an email to set up online accounts. So I don't think that was. so the way I was looking at that, that wouldn't impact FOIA issues. That's more just having an account access. Because I think all the communications that we have still kind of go through the HRC, the HRC at Charlottesville, where that all gets picked up, and is all FOIAble and everything. So I don't think we're asking for a separate communication channel. It's more a separate interface to the public that we're asking for.
And, I know Todd has explained this. Keep in mind, city council does not have these channels of communication. And in the past, members of council have argued they should. It creates some challenges for staff. What if it's a 3-2 vote by council and 3 members are like, okay, we won, put this out on our city council social media. It sets up a dynamic that's challenging for us and they're elected officials and you're appointed, and that's a difference as well. But this has been, it's been helpful for me to have the opportunity to be a Zoom host on many of your meetings. So I'm learning a lot and I appreciate everything you guys are sharing.
What do you think, Andy, I'm not sure if you were responding to what I said, but what do you all think about requesting city emails? Like, I really appreciated Brian's point about making it easier for FOIA and, that kind of communication. Were you saying we don't want that, Andy? Or were you just speaking?
I was talking about a separate issue of
Not circumventing.
of account access, not necessarily separate communication,
Right.
and just trying to clarify that. I think that was the intention there.
I would be supportive of separate emails.
Can I clarify something about the separate emails or about the city emails? So right now, I'm making the assumption that as long as we're communicating, when we send our emails back and forth, as long as we're communicating using that Human Rights Commission email address, and we're not, like, I'm not writing to Jeanette and Andy in our Gmail addresses separately from all of this, right? As long as we're not doing that, that you're capturing all legally required FOIA communications. Is that right? Am I right in assuming that? Like, I've been careful not to write to Andy and Jeanette and Jessica using just our Gmail addresses about HRC information. And I'm assuming that's the correct thing to do. Is that right? So what would be the benefit to us having HRC city email addresses individually?
And Todd may have to explain to me what that account does, but if that's a distribution list, then the only copy we may have is whatever Todd receives as a copy of that item. With the PCRB, we set up, they have a distribution list, and we set up a special mailbox to be a member of the distribution list so that that mailbox gets a copy of everything. I think that would accomplish, Lindell, what you're talking about, that then if you're only communicating to the list, there is a copy in the city. But I would fully expect that the Human Rights Commission and most boards and commissions is going direct to each other on all sorts of public business items, and that's to be expected. The requirement, though, is that if we get a request for your records, then you have to go through your emails and find them because that's public business.
I did send an email to this group for the doodle poll, just to this individual email. So
Okay.
with that assumption, and I use a separate Gmail account just for the Human Rights Commission because of that. But anyways, I know we don't have much time left. We have like about 15 minutes. Do you all want to talk a little bit about the bigger picture goal pieces, or?
Yeah, I was hoping we'd get there. Yeah.
If we have time, I would like to follow up on follow-up statements, whether we're going to do that or not. Maybe it's another conversation, but I don't want to lose track of that.
Yeah. So I think I want to acknowledge what you were saying, Jeanette, about the action plan. I think that's something that we can maybe work on offline, just like coming up with that communication plans and what we're wanting to do, what we're hoping to accomplish with that. That sounds good. And then I guess we should talk about our next steps, what we're hoping to do, and maybe one of them being what Lindell said about the follow-up statements. Andy, what do you have? What do you think?
Wait, what was the?
What would you like us to do within our roles as we move forward with this ad hoc committee? Were there things that you had on mind about wanting to do outreach?
I didn't have any specific things.
Todd, oh, I meant to ask you real quickly. Sorry, Todd. Are there any events that are coming up that maybe we could have like a booth? I forgot to ask you that earlier.
That's a great question. So, basically the pandemic started right after Charlene left. And so there really haven't been any in-person events that I've been aware of. They've all been virtual things. So yeah, Charlene and I used to spend quite a number of hours attending events, setting up a table, talking to people, passing out brochures, answering questions. And of course, Charlene did a lot of things, just like presentations and things like that, and facilitated a lot of groups. And so that has not happened as much given the pandemic. And so as far as I'm aware, until things start opening up again, I'll try to keep an eye out for events. If you all see something that sounds like, we should have a table set up, and I'll have to just check in with the rules. I know that our office is still technically closed, though I do have to meet people in person quite frequently for different investigatory activities. But yeah, if you see something that you think we should be engaged in and set up a table, we could do that. So.
Jeanette, what can we do to help you with, or what can we do to get started on that plan? I think that's a really good, and just to clarify, what you're talking about is an action plan that we would give to the city manager or the assistant city manager as soon as we could reasonably do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that we could use for ourselves to guide our work. I mean, what I heard, we talked about a couple key things, like our purpose of the overall commission is to be a strong advocate for justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil and human rights. So it seems like for the community engagement subgroup or ad hoc committee, one of our goals could be to engage community around advocacy, and that could even be to communicate, could be the first one, to communicate around issues of advocacy and justice for equal opportunity, to engage community around issues of advocacy, of justice, and and then to, I know this term thought leader is kind of overused, but to provide leadership. I mean, that's what our purpose says around these areas. And that's where I think these statements come in. The statements are demonstrations of our leadership around advocacy. So that could be written into our purpose as a committee. And whether or not that means having emails or then we can specify, we would like a specific tool to communicate with community members, if that's Facebook, or if the guidance is just that we use our own individual accounts, just being clear on what we're allowed to do around that. Attending events, that kind of thing could be some of the action steps under that. Do you all have other ideas about purpose? I guess I
have one thought about how you could go about starting that. And in fact, I took it upon myself to create a draft resolution regarding how the community can take action and do advocacy between meetings. I've shared that just as a draft with Mary and Catherine to bring to you all. I think we've just been doing so many other things that it's sort of gotten low on the list, but that's one way you can do this, and to codify what action you want to take is to put it into a resolution. And one of the reasons for doing that is that once you vote and pass a resolution, when you do take action, you can cite the resolution as the reason, as the justification for the action that you took. And so things kind of connect back and support one another. Like you can reinforce your own actions and say, this is what the commission does. This is what we believe. So anyway, that resolution, it hasn't gone, I don't think, to the whole commission yet. It's probably Catherine and Mary are going to look at that and maybe share it with you later. But that's very similar to what you're talking about.
Could this committee see that resolution and provide some feedback on it?
Yep, I could share that with you, and then we'll figure out. I can probably attach that to. Well, we'll figure out how to do it, but we'll disclose it publicly as well. I don't think it's on the box thing yet, so it's confusing to keep track of where all the files go. But yeah, I'll make sure that it gets shared, and then we put it on, a publicly accessible spot as well.
Is there a way that we can access it to add edits and feedback? Oh, sorry, Jessica.
No, Todd, can you answer her question?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. So what I can do is, I can put it on our Box account in the working documents folder, and then all commissioners have editing access. And again, I always say this, but if you do have questions about how to use Box or find it frustrating or something, just let me know. I can certainly walk you through the steps to being able to use it and make edits and so forth.
Jeanette, I really like what you said about the statement. The only thing I would add to that is we want to make sure that this is accessible for everyone. If COVID has taught us anything, is to adapt in this digital world. And so not just so gaining access, accessibility through ADA compliancy, but also access on multiple different platforms. So being versatile in that way, I think that's important and what I'm hoping for, to be agile in those moments when it comes to outreach.
Yeah.
And it helps amplify the voices in our work, right? If you're not attentive to coming to our meetings and following our box comments, you're not seeing this information. And so I think just being able to provide more access to our information on social media, because that's a very powerful platform. And there's a lot of information I gain from social media platforms because I'm not on other things. And so I just want to include that in the statement, but everything else you said, Jeanette, I'd say yes, I like that. So Jeanette, do you want to draft something, or do you want to take a shot at drafting that and then sending it to all of us and then we can iterate?
Should I draft something, Todd, or should I just build off of what you've already done?
If you'd like, I'll send the link. I'll put it on Box, send the link to you all,
Okay.
and then that'll be publicly accessible from the links at the top of our agendas as well. And so if that's what you're looking for, great. If not, you can save that as something else and just chop it to pieces. It was a starting point for you all, just to say here might be where a jumping off point to do the thing that you're trying to do.
I think that'd be great. Yeah, I'd be happy to take a first run at that. And
So you'll create a separate document from what Todd has done that we can work on? Is that what you're thinking? Or would you just
work
chop
on the
up Todd?
document that I think we could just work on his document on the resolution that's drafted.
Okay.
What do you all agree with that, or what do you think?
Well, maybe I'm a little bit confused, because is that resolution actually the same thing as what we're talking about doing?
It's related. I would say it's probably not directly. The main reason I drafted it was because we were trying to do actions between meetings, and we didn't have a clear resolution to cite back to say, the chair is taking action regarding this issue pursuant to resolution such and such the commission has already passed, right?
Yeah.
So you could, and so it stipulates in there also what channels, be it attending an event and presenting, writing a letter, posting on social media. It attempted to address the different channels. So it's sort of tangentially related to what you're talking about. So again, you can take it and use some of the content of that to make your own thing that seems more relevant.
So it's a draft you have set up that can be a framework to kind of add on to these other pieces that we're talking about.
Yes, and it includes all the whereases already, so you can already say here's the justification for why we're putting this forth. So that saves you a little trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm thinking it might be slightly different if I'm understanding correctly. I think what we're talking about is a little bit different. What we're talking about if I understood correctly, is what this subcommittee is proposing that we do when it comes to community engagement and communications, right? So we have a plan that says we're going to do these things for this reason, for these reasons. And that document is something that we can then give to the city manager and say, we need you to give us access to these kinds of communication tools so that we can accomplish these goals. It would fit into what Todd's talking about, but it is kind of a separate document, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. It's probably a little bit more expansive than the document that I created, but like, again, you may be able to cut and paste a lot of what's already written to create something that's more expansive to your purposes. Exactly.
I know we have like 5 minutes, but one thing that I wanted to mention today, I'd like us to work on is, Todd, like I haven't seen any of the promotional materials for Human Rights Commission. I'd love to see those. Like outreach is my background, and so I'd love to see those and how we can make them a little bit more friendly to the public. I don't know. I don't want to critique them because I haven't seen them, but I would love for us to do that. And even if we can't, let's say the worst case scenarios, we can't get our own account, like we can still adapt those for stuff that we can send out on our own personal media. I would love to think about, so in our plan, as we're putting in a communication plan, I think we should have one for like, if we have an official account, and then like plans for what we can do individually as commissioners. Like we can create fun graphics, fun post, IG story type of things. But I love to work with the promo packet materials that you already have. So if you have digital copies of those, I'd love if you could send those over.
Yeah. When you say promo packet for the Human Rights Commission,
Like brochures, like what do you hand out to people when you're at events? When you used to be at events, what did you hand out?
yeah, certainly. So I have some brochures, all of which need to be updated. And because I haven't been doing outreach much in the community, I had updated one very brief brochure during the pandemic because I did a little bit of door-to-door outreach in one window of time. But since then, I do apologize. Like there are so many things that I would like to be doing in terms of outreach, just from the standpoint of, what does the Values Act mean for our enforcement authority, right? Like I have dreams of a new brochure, we have a whole host of brochures that I'd like to update, and I just not gotten there. And in addition to that, I've talked a little bit with communications about, that's something that we can use the platforms of the city to promote, like, hey, this is what the Office of Human Rights can do in terms of enforcing and protecting against illegal discrimination, right? Like those are messages that I really want the public to hear. Right now, it's just very difficult to get that out. So I can send you, what I should probably do is update the drafts and then send them to you with all the new language. It's a couple of days worth of work, but I can do it.
So is that something, Todd, like again, back to the what can we do in support of you, understanding the list of things, but like, is that something you can task unto us that you still will go through the appropriate channels to get approval, but something that we can take on editing?
Yeah, sure. If you would like to look at it, yeah, I can send it to you. Yeah, they're all publisher documents. And if you have access to Publisher, you can definitely tinker with them. Most of it is like, it has to comply with state law and the ordinance, but as long as it does that and gets the message across, mostly I'm just trying to strip them down to make them really fast and easy to read and really accessible. So
that's my superpower. That's what I do.
Nice.
Really well. Yeah. Okay. So I guess if there's not anything else, I guess we have to move on to matters by the public, if there are any. But Jeanette, before we go,
Jessica, are you willing to be our ad hoc leader and give the update at our meeting at our next meeting? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I am. So do we have anyone still in the public?
Molly's still here with us. Molly, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share? She's not raising her hand, but she's the only one here. So there you go.
Okay, so next steps is that we're gonna use the resolution that you have to kind of adapt our own document that we eventually want to send to the city manager about our plan for social media. We're going to look at Todd's promotional materials to help be able to make edits. And did I capture everything? So basically the communications plan, the letter, it's kind of the same with the letter to the city manager, and then reviewing Todd's promotional materials. And then we're waiting to hear the final words about what we can and can't do with our social media on behalf of the commission.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Thank you all. I know it's a lot of little steps. Thanks for the insights, Brian. That was really helpful.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Todd. Well, as
Yeah.
always.
As always.
Thanks. It's good to work with y'all, always. Who's-
Bye.
and,
Bye.
and two of you are sticking around perhaps for the next
No.
meeting.
Yes.
I think Lindell was on the next next committee as well, right?
Todd, was I on the next one?
What's that?
Was I on? I didn't think I was on the next one.
It was, I think you, here, I'll look at the minutes.
Okay.
So give me a second. It was, sorry, I have to scroll way back. I believe it was you, Catherine, and Lindell. Yes, that volunteered to serve on the ad hoc committee for legal representation for complainants.
Okay. I have to leave at 2:15 to pick up my kids. But I can stay for 15 minutes.
Gotcha. Yep. Yep. And this is a nascent conversation. So I don't know how far we'll get today. I've drafted sort of a very, very rough version of a potential resolution for you to consider, but I didn't share it yet because I figured I'd just talk about it a little bit.
Okay. Well, that's good. So then, we'll spend the first part reviewing that then? So I can hear that.
We can, yeah, I can just sort of go over it in very basic ways and just sort of, I think I'm actually running with an idea that came out of a discussion from Wolfgang and Alex a while back. So, but I guess we'll wait. Since I'm not sure, I hope Lindell's coming. She may have forgotten that she's on this committee as well.
Okay.
And we're anticipating Catherine joining us.
Okay.
I just sent them both an email just to see what they're at. They may both be caught in something else. It's kind of a middle of the day meeting, which is
Yeah.
challenging.
It is.
Catherine, welcome.
Catherine.
Hi there. Sorry about that.
No problem. It never, technology doesn't seem to get easier even the more we spend time with it, at least for me.
I have no idea. I could not find the Zoom link anywhere.
Oh, well, thanks for figuring out the back door. Lindell, I'm not sure if she had something else that she had to run to. She was at the last meeting, but hopped off. So it's 2:10 now. Yeah, we can do what you all feel like.
It seems like we ought to try to work. Are you guys hearing the same echo I'm hearing? Not sure what that's about.
So Catherine, unfortunately, I have to leave in 5 minutes to go pick up my kids from school, but
So maybe we don't have the meeting at all?
can we?
I'll give you maybe the 5-minute thing that I'm thinking, if it's helpful, because I probably put maybe a little bit more effort into thinking about this. So I think I've explained at the Human Rights Commission why I was interested in this, and that most complainants that come to the office are folks who don't have legal representation. Most respondents have more assets, or at least more resources to get legal representation throughout the complaint and investigation process. And I was inspired by both, I think Wolfgang and Alex had talked about this when we were back discussing our procedures for public hearings, and then watching the progress of the Right to Counsel program for tenants facing eviction. Maybe, even more wanted to see what we could do with this. What I can say, given that we have like 4 minutes left until Jessica has to leave, and I really would love to make sure that she's engaged in this conversation, is that I have sort of the makings of a potential resolution for this. What I can do is send that to you all to take a look at. It is a very rough draft. What I do know is that from what I understand, no other commission or office in Virginia is doing anything like this. So we're kind of treading new ground, much in the same way we're treading new ground with the Right to Counsel. But I think that the Right to Counsel programs than other localities might be very similar to what we're trying to propose here. It's just a very much smaller program, because we're talking maybe 5 to 10 cases a year that would need it. So if that is a good starting point and allows you all to kind of keep moving forward with it, let me know.
So starting with your draft, you mean? Yeah, if you could send that. Do we know what other states, like New York now has Right to Counsel, for example? Do we know if they have right to this kind of representation?
I don't know. A quick Google search on that didn't show anything similar to it. And what I want to do, I've been in touch with the Richmond Eviction Lab. They've been helping us think about the programmatic aspects and the data collection around the tenant right to counsel. So they've sent me recently some resources around sort of program design. And so I'm going to look at those to see how closely they might mirror something like this. And I'll continue to see if I can refine my Google searching capacity to see if anywhere in any other state there's something like this associated with complaints of discrimination.
Because the issue, of course, right, is I'm just making sure I'm like on the right page, is that we don't really want to give wealthy landlords free counsel, right? Like they don't need it. And the point is to equalize the power, not to increase the power disparity. So it's finding the way to do that is legal and protects everyone's civil rights.
Exactly
so the
right.
other place that has a model for that might be like the University of Virginia, like other universities, in how it supports assisting with counsel in, say, a Title IX complaint. Right, where it has to provide the same to both parties.
I'll take a look at that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not asking you necessarily. I mean, that's the kind of like work we can also do on this committee. I'm just speaking out loud about other places.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
I know only a little bit about what their office does, but that would be very helpful to know for sure. And you'll see in this draft, and once I send it, rather than just go over all the details, I've tried to account for the fact that while you want to make this fund available to both parties of the complaint, both the complainant and the respondent, I think by putting income limits and asset and like net worth limits on there for qualification, because to be fair, like there is the chance that, say, a landlord who's just owns, 5 places in the city or something like that, and is not wealthy by any means, is in an entanglement that also merits legal representation, whether it's through the mediation process or whatever. So just trying to be equitable about that. But yeah, I agree. Yeah.
A landlord could be low income, right? It could be somebody who's
Indeed.
renting their basement to be able to afford their house,
Indeed. Yeah.
theoretically, right?
Yeah.
So,
Although there are some limitations even in the coverage of the law as to whether they're exempt from fair housing law. But yeah, you're right. There's examples like that. Exactly. So, or a very small business, something like that. So anyway, okay. Well, I mean, if that's helpful, Jessica's got to go. So yeah, we it's a very short
we
meeting.
try not to leave kids at the curb too long.
Yeah, totally.
And my kids, they notice because like they're the last few to be picked up. So they're like, Mom, you came early today, or Mom, you came late. But Catherine, I know like this is a very brief, but would you like to take on just looking into Title IX? I thought that was a really good idea. And then if together you and I and Lindell can review Todd's document and kind of go from there. Is that what you feel like next steps maybe?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Okay. And then I know we met briefly, but do you feel comfortable just like recapping this in our meeting, the Human Rights Commission meeting?
Yeah, when is our next meeting?
The couple of weeks from now? What's
Third
that?
Thursday, which is coming right up. I was
Coming
just
right
thinking
up.
about that yesterday. Like,
Yeah.
I hope I
It's like the 20th, right? I think
believe
It's the 20th.
there is a better than even possibility that I will be traveling and will miss. It will be the first meeting I've missed in my whole time. I think I
wow.
might miss that meeting.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
fine.
Sorry.
I could summarize. It wasn't
It's
a
a pretty
lot.
quick update. I'll
Yeah.
I'll hopefully get the minutes to both of these committee meetings out to you long before the next meeting, so you have those as a reference.
Okay. And Todd, we didn't do call order, roll call, or mission
I
statement.
know. I realize. I guess in some ways we're still figuring out this whole thing when we stack 2 meetings together. In some ways, we could probably just make it 1 meeting, and under the work session, it's the 2 committees. Live and learn. We'll figure it out. But thank you both for being willing. And I guess we should see if
Any
Molly
comments
has
from
anything to say,
public?
because she's our one attendee. Molly, if you're still there and you have anything to say for public comment, you're more than welcome to raise your hand. Maybe nothing to say on this one. So, okay.
Okay. So the next steps are just that, Todd, you're going to send us the information of what you have drafted. We'll start looking at Title IX, like using UVAs, like Title IX services as an example. And that's pretty much it for right now, right? And then we'll schedule another ad hoc meeting so we can have an actual meeting.
Hopefully we'll all show up to it.
We'll get there. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you all for making the time today. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I'll send that stuff
All
to you
right.
quickly.
Okay. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Catherine. Good to see you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Brian. Thank you.
Goodbye. Todd, are we all done?
Brian, I think we're all done. We're officially earned at 2:18.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks so much for the support. Really appreciate
Feel
it.
free to call me if you need to follow up on anything.
Okay, yeah, lots to figure out. I'll watch this again and see what I need to follow up with.
Sounds good.
Take care.